And Swan, let me know that they'll be about 15 minutes late.
Okay, so let's do roll call. So on the Zoom, we have Mizan, Steve
Here.
Christy,
Here.
Brian here. What about Tim? Is Tim?
Tim has an excused absence, as does Brooke. They're both out of town.
Okay, all right, and Nick myself is here, so we do have a quorum. Sounds good. Okay, I'm gonna do the land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge that we are on the indigenous land of Coast Salish peoples who have reserved treaty rights to this land, specifically the Snoqualmie tribe. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived and continue to live here since time immemorial. Okay, let's talk about the minutes from last meeting. Actually, let's approve the agenda first. Can I get someone to make a motion to approve
I
the
move
agenda?
we approve the agenda.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of approving tonight's agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Hi.
Any opposed or abstain? All right, the agenda passes. And then hopefully everyone had a chance to take a look at the minutes from our last meeting. Nice one. Can I get a motion to approve last meeting's minutes?
I'll move the. Put out a motion to approve the meeting.
All right, Steve, can I get a second?
I second.
Thank you, Christy. All in favor of approving last meeting's minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstain? Okay, our last meeting minutes pass. Now I'll turn over to Rich to see if we have a comment.
We've got nobody on for public comment online.
Bye-bye. Okay, in the room. Thank you. Mary, welcome.
Hi, the trip. I'm Mary Wichter. I've lived in Sammamish for over 25 years. Because of Jan Bird and her friends who are stormwater people, I became a Washington native plant steward in 2019, 2020, right when COVID hit. So we had to work separately, masks on or whatever, but I learned a lot about plants. I also grew up on a farm in Montana where we have 300 acres. Conservation people next door to us, they're cool, but they have no money. We call it Poverty Ranch. Because of that, they never do their weeds. Guess where the weeds end up going? Onto our ranch. So my whole life I've done weeds, fought weeds, and it's really important because if you don't do them, it really is bad for the environment. So I had emailed kind of in a long thing for tansy ragwort. First learned about tansy ragwort when I was walking along the trail, and there was like one of those little plastic signs, paper just laminated. And they said tansy ragwort was really bad. Notify King County, or this is what you do. And then I also had done a walk with LB Jones in Evans Creek Preserve, and she had said, okay, those are really bad. We spotted one. So she went over, did special gloves, put it in a garbage bag, took it to the trash. And I thought, cool, that's like a bad plant. Also reading around, I've learned that tansy ragwort is toxic, like it builds up in the liver. So it's bad for people. It's bad for pets. It's bad for deer and anything that else eats grass. And you're like, oh, well, just mow it to maintain it. Well, if you just mow it, it kind of spreads the plants around. And when they're wet or when they're green, they taste bitter, so they won't get eaten. But when they're dry, they just seem like grass, so the deer and stuff will eat them. So what you really need to do is remove it. You can't ignore it. Right now, as I'm talking, because I went yesterday, Ebright Creek has the big wetland there. There's some new ones that are just on the side. I've reported them twice, and the city said they're too busy to take care of them. And I can't really do it anymore because I hurt my knee and I've had 2 deaths in the family over the last 2 years. But we really need to get at least a few places cleaned up. So I have a few suggestions and it might be just a little over my time. The first one is we need to train maintenance operating staff, just so as they're doing their job, they can drive around and do it any time of year, usually June, July, and August. The flowers are really bright yellow. If you walk down here by the police, you'll see bright yellow that runs right on the other side of the fence. They're right there too. We also should, if we don't have time for the city, we're a contract city, so maybe there's a few local landscape companies that could say, hey, we'd like to do this for you or with you, and they could volunteer to get trained. So they could do it during the summertime as well. And that's the best time for it. In the fall, I just pulled some out, but the roots really come out easy right now, so you don't even have to dig them out. And then, so basically train our people, have a landscape company that's trained or two, so that they'll do it. The third one is, it's really hard to report online, a noxious weed, like how to do it. So I think that could just be another C-click fix added, which would be really easy. It's a great tool. And then also for any of the developers or people that own lots that are vacant or they're not taken care of, they're growing really strong there and then they spread. It's just like our property in Montana. It spreads from when people aren't taking care of it. So I hope you'll look at this
15
stuff.
seconds, Mary.
I hope you'll look at this stuff. I did talk with Sid Gupta because he's been on Parks forever. He was the president and he's also a Washington native plant steward, but we really need to do it. And so I use TMZ ragwort as the symbol. There are other ones, but this one we can eradicate because I used to personally do it for 3 years and it wasn't so bad. I had 2 deaths in the family in the last year and hurt my knee and I can't do it anymore. So we need the city to do that portion.
Thank you, Mary. No public comment today? Okay.
She's here tomorrow. She's like, she's.
Great. Well, next on the agenda, we have a presentation for the commission from our restoration specialist, Sebastian. Sebastian works in the Parks and Recreation Department. Some of you may have volunteered with him at some of our city volunteer events or seen him at some of the events that we do, like the Farmers Market and Earth Day throughout the year. So, Sebastian, thanks for
Okay.
joining us.
Can you present from yours?
Yes.
So I have to just back it out.
Screen share. Great.
Okay,
Look, it's taking a sec. There we go.
sounds good. Well, thank you, commissioners, for taking the time out of your agenda to hear me today. My name is Sebastian Otaka. I'm the state's habitat restoration specialist. I'm here today to give an overview on habitat restoration, what it looks like for the city. I've broken it down into a few different categories. We're going to go over those. These are the category which are managing existing restoration sites. Being a specialist on native plants and noxious weeds and the management for those, overseeing stewardship programs, training volunteers in running restoration events, hosting the University of Washington's environmental capstone students, coordinating restoration programs in the city. In addition, there's also designing restoration plans, consulting with other departments on their mitigation plans, managing our mitigation sites that we currently have and developing new plans, and environmental education and outreach. Great. Next one. Oh, right in. It's gonna be fun for me. Okay, what is restoration? Ecological restoration is the process of helping a damaged or degraded ecosystem recover its natural structure, function, and diversity, often returning it to a healthy, self-sustaining state through deliberate actions. Currently, there are 19 active restoration sites in the city that cover 42 acres of parks and green spaces. Sites vary in size and scope of work and their long-term goals. There are 4 phases of habitat restoration. These are benchmarks that indicate what level of management is needed based on the long-term goals of that site. By using these phases and resurveying seasonally, we base what inputs are needed for each site to make work plans based off our capacity. The phase 1 of a site is when there's little to no native cover with degraded soils and low biodiversity. Phases 2 and 3 are the establishing of the habitat with varying levels of management needed. And phase 4 is the monitoring phase with little inputs as plantings established, creating less competition from noxious weeds. The monitoring of sites as they progress is very needed to ensure that all the work that went into a site does not regress before it can sustain itself. To develop a restoration plan that is achievable, we look at soil testing, designing planting maps with species specific to the site's ecology, then work off the trajectory of a 20-year growth plan of the canopy that we are desiring. Additional projects within restoration include establishing pollinator gardens throughout the city to create pollinator pathways, repairing restoration or the focus on shorelines, stream banks, and wetlands, erosion control and soil retention, tree care of our current urban canopy, and identifying of noxious weeds, control and management plans for those, and weeds of concern. We're gonna talk about noxious weeds now. After area has experienced disturbance, often the first plants to dominate are those that are considered noxious. Noxious weeds are aggressive, invasive plants that lack natural predators that quickly spread and can destroy habitats, lower land value, increase erosion and fire hazards, and be harmful to humans, pests, and livestock. So the management and control of these species is a large part of what we do, the restoration team.
Can I ask you a question about that, or are you gonna go into detail?
I'm about to, yeah.
Okay.
I was gonna say noxious weeds, a noxious weed is a legal status, which is set by the state's noxious weed control board. Then there is a county noxious weed control board that is a little more specific and localized to each area. Each classification comes with levels of control needed to be taken by municipalities and homeowners. Classifications are based on the spread and possibility for control, along with the economic, ecological, and human health concerns that each species poses to an area. The control of Class A species is legally required to take priority, like garlic mustard and small flower jewelweed. Class B, which is still designated for control based on resources and the regional spread, examples being knotweed, tansy ragwort, purple loosestrife, which are all here in Sammamish. Then there's Class C, which dominate areas under restoration and are more commonly known, like blackberry, English ivy, and yellow flag iris. In addition to noxious weeds, there are also a category referred to as weeds of concern. These species do not have a legal status to control them, but they still pose threats to our natural areas.
Nick, did you still have a question?
I have a question on the eradication portion. Is that coming up or?
Oh, eradication? No, not necessarily.
So my question, this might get to Mary's comment. I mean, pulling weeds is very labor intensive.
Mhm.
Herbicides can be very harmful to the environment. So how does the city manage noxious weed control?
So we have an integrated pest management that we actually just updated in 2023, which tells us how to best manage it. There are times when eradication is not feasible with things, and that's the classifications that they're broken down into. So Class A are things that we can still control and manage. I mean, as a state, as a county, as a municipality. Class B are things that we're not going to eradicate, but we are still close enough to get them out of an area. Like within, like you can get it out of Sammamish, but it's not going to disappear across Western Washington. Class A are things that people don't see as often. And then Class C, we're never getting rid of. We're not getting rid of blackberry, it's staying here, but it's causing a disturbance. So we need to remove it from an area and restore that area with natural ways that it will not come back into it, which is establishing native plantings throughout a site. Yeah, so
We're talking about physical removal. and
yeah, physical
maybe
removal.
nature-based solution is secondary.
Oh, well, I mean, that's part of the integrated pest management on how you can best tackle a noxious weed with the resources you have. So economic resources, physical constraints. I have a pesticide license. There's not a ton of people along in the city that have them because we choose not to use them within our pest management. There's certain species I use pesticides on, but most of the time I do not use it because that's what the city is aiming towards. But physical removal is one of the main ones we use. We also use like suppression of them, changing soils. Those are other traits that are not using chemicals. So
The city use goats. You ever done use goats for removal?
I have used goats in the past when I didn't work with the city. I don't think they're any more effective than running mowers over something. Your spread is not going to be there, but they do not eat the whole root and it will reestablish.
Okay.
So if your plan is to lay a bunch of mulch over that and suppress those weeds after they've been down,
Yeah.
great. We have brush cutters and mowers to do that same work. I love goats for a local area. I think it's a great way of doing it. I'm not going to be against that as a restoration tool. Most of our sites, it doesn't fall under.
So it's kind of a short-term solution.
Yeah, well, it depends on the site. Sites are really vary on what your goal is and how you're trying to achieve that goal, what resources you have. Really is the point of our integrated pest management is like, what resources do you have? How do you evaluate your long-term goal, the resources you have to put into it. So say you have goats on staff, I know, I think it's, maybe Tucker, maybe Spola has a bunch of goats and they use them, and that's great. I think they're not something we have like on hand. But we
Right.
could get them,
Contract that out.
but we can pay a contractor, or yeah, like, or we can have maintenance go brush cut an area. We
Yeah.
have that resource, so. I'm not gonna be against any form of it. They're just different tools, and we look at what tools we have.
Sure. No, thank you. I was just curious on
Yeah.
what control means.
Of course, I
Could you-
am,
Could you define for me integrated pest management and
yeah, the integrated pest management is it's the leading document we have. It's on the city's page. How they work is it's a way that we say that we're going to tackle a certain species, or so if we're going into an area and there is, say, knotweed, causes a lot of concerns because you can't mow it, you can't remove it by hand. There's only a few different things. So that would lead us to using chemicals most of the time. And then it's a pathway to get to what you're going to use.
So-
Yes.
chemical use would be part of an integrated
It is, yeah.
pest management?
Ours has also the chemicals that we're restricting as a whole. So I mean, I see if you're interested in getting the pest management updated, it does have the chemicals that we don't allow using.
Like Roundup?
I don't know if glyphosate's actually one of the ones that are on Roundup's glyphosate, but it might be on there. I don't really use Roundup, but I don't know if it's not on it because it's not something we have currently. Like, we have to purchase pesticides. It's not one of the ones I'm using towards a species. Yeah.
Talk about ivy and all particular cell in the state.
That would be our weeds of concern. Weeds of concern leading to your breakdown of how something becomes a noxious weed, the actual classification. We started as a weed of concern. A lot of times what the city is looking, or not the city, but what the county is looking at, and they'll update it as like, this is potentially going to be harmful. I'm sure a lot of us know the plant holly is on there. Holly is harmful in natural areas. It is not beneficial to the ecosystem there. It is consistently sold and not brought to the noxious weed list because people use holly and you sell it. So it's not going to get put onto that list every year. They can lobby for it every year, but they vote. Like, so it's people who are selling things. You're saying hollies or English ivy was another one. People loved ivy, loved using in landscaping. So once we put it on the noxious weed control, like, you can't sell it anymore. So a lot of the things on the weed concern stay on the weeds concern because people like using them. But we acknowledge that they cause damage in urban or in natural areas. So that's why there is this other classification. So we don't have a legal status to control them as a municipality, but we have an understanding that they should be controlled when you're doing restoration.
I have a couple of holly trees and a holly bush in my yard. So you would classify those as a noxious weed?
Hey, you should get rid of them.
Red berry.
You're right. They're the two
They have
specific.
red berries.
Yeah.
If it is a female, or if it's got red berries, it's female, and then we should really get rid of it. So that's actually, in the weeds of concern, I have a lot of trees on here because I do an invasive tree sweep. I'm looking primarily for female hollies. If we get rid of all the hollies, it would take a lot of time. I'm looking for trees that are female hollies. I'll flag them in the summer when they're going to berry, like right now, summer to fall. And then once the berries have gone, then I'll go and kill them. Because we use imazapyr injections to kill trees to leave them as stands for habitat. So it does get killed with an herbicide, but that's so that we create more habitat within the forest and leaving up a bit of a canopy. But with those invasive tree sweeps, we also come back and do heavy planting of native trees to make sure that there isn't any sort of canopy gap, because a lot of times as you're finding holly, they're not very large, but they are taking up a lot of space in a canopy. So by getting rid of it immediately, like cutting it down, you would be taking away that gap and opening up for more holly to grow. But by injecting it with an imazapyr shell, it's a slow death to the tree. It can take a couple years. Really, so it doesn't die very quickly at all. It leaves the stand for habitat. long term, and then we can go plant right underneath it. As that tree is decaying, we're getting natural nutrients put into the soil. We use it as a nursery log, a standard nursery log. Yeah.
Good.
Okay, where we're on. Oh, that one. Go back.
Oh, you want me to go back?
No, we're right there. I'm just looking at my slides back here. All right, I work within the city's green spaces along with assisting other departments. This is well to ensure that noxious weeds are managed effectively. Currently working on managing noxious weeds using the city's integrated pest management, which has updated in 2023, along with practices for the least ecological impact. So going into areas, looking at what the areas and not using the same tools every time. So for example, I don't use herbicide on most things. Knotweed is one of the few things that we do use herbicide on because of how that plant grows. And on banks and shores where we have Hooper loosestrife, we like to eradicate it, but what's going to happen is we rip it out. We would have erosion of that shoreline, so we come back and cut the seed heads off when they go to flower. All right. We're gonna get into who is doing restoration work here in Sammamish. We have our stewards, me as a restoration specialist, and volunteers. Stewards. We have very dedicated group of volunteers that are referred to as stewards. This is a title used by many, but is also certification. Many of the stewards in our community have gone through the Master Stewardship Program through Washington Native Plant Society, which is an extensive course on ecological restoration. The last course was in 2020, which Mary was on. The program is split into 100 hours of classroom and 100 hours of field work. The program provides the city with 19 extensively trained master stewards, along with the restoration of 2 acres of our parkland, the installation of 2,600 native plants along 4 sites. They contributed at least 1,755 hours during that program as a collective. The master stewards take on projects and assist in training, outreach, growing the community engagement, and growing others who want to be stewards. Many other stewards have gained their knowledge from other avenues, such as work, school, or volunteering. Some of the groups that we have here are the Sammamish stewards, stormwater stewards, native plant society, or native plant stewards, and trail stewards. Stewards expand our ability to run restoration events, maintain sites that need specialized knowledge of local ecology. Projects include noxious weed management, tree care, and monitoring for heat stress, surveying parks for noxious weeds. Stewards manage many of our restoration programs, like the city's nursery. The nursery provides us with a healthy stock of native plants, species that we use in our restoration projects. Our stewards and naturalists collect local seeds and cuttings to propagate a healthy plant stock for the restoration projects, running plant salvage program across the city's departments. When a site is being developed or within a right-of-way, the landscaping or in landscaping zone, we may be given notice so that volunteers or city staff can go into an area and salvage the plantings that would have otherwise been destroyed. We also have the interpretive native plant garden at Lower Commons. The stewards create pollinator gardens that make great pollinator pathways. We have 8 pollinator gardens established throughout the city. They are starting a native or noxious weed brigade to sweep areas when plants first show up, such as tansy, running their own work parties to maintain active sites, and training and educating new volunteers with their wealth of knowledge. There we go. The program officially we're going to talk about stormwater stewards. The program officially started in 2023, but had been long going from help of community members, stormwater stewards, the stormwater department, and the restoration team. The program assists community members to adopt local stormwater ponds. Stormwater stewards control noxious weeds, salvage tree saplings, and enhance stormwater ponds by removing the need for vegetation control. They introduce native species that enrich the pond and buffer, creating new habitats. They plant pollinator gardens to promote pollinator pathways at most of these sites. And these are just what we have for now. We have 8 adopted ponds currently with 3 pollinator beds installed. There are 12 stonewater spirits, and they have done 788 volunteer hours as of so far since 2023. And 813 native plants have been installed at these ponds.
Just curious on that, so the types of plants that are installed in the stormwater ponds, are they designed to filter out contaminants, petroleum hydrocarbons, other things? Is there a remediation angle to this as well?
That would be great. That's not necessarily always the case. There are restrictions, of course, around stormwater ponds about what we can and can't plant. And those restrictions, we could work within those restrictions. I try to have the right plantings go in the right areas. Such as placing skunk cabbage and wapato into ponds. They have been somewhat successful in some of them, and others they haven't. Instead of having the vegetation be dredged out, most of what we're having the stormwater stewards do is planting outside of the pond because of the potential hazards of that toxic water. We don't send people into the pond. It's actually a restriction. So we're getting closer and closer to that edge. Most of the plantings we put into restoration sites though and do pull out toxins, but not as specifically as say cattails, where you then need to get rid of them long term. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so they will hold the toxins, but they are not something that dies off seasonally that we just need to pull out and then put to a Superfund site. Or sorry, not Superfund site, put to a set site where they need to.
But at
be away.
least they would be preventing the chemicals from getting into the aquifer, right? So
Yeah. No, they are definitely enriching that filtration going in.
Yep.
Yes,
okay.
it's beneficial to have them be managed by stormwater stewards or have a pond adopted by a community, rather than having us go in with contractors and mow it down just because we need to do the vegetation control.
Right.
Okay. Next, we're gonna talk about volunteers as a community. Sorry, I'm off. Let me see if I can go back. Volunteers. Volunteers make up a large portion of our work base. We are very fortunate to have a community that values our urban forests and volunteers their time. Most volunteer work is done during the early phases of a restoration project, when the work is focused on removing noxious weeds, laying down mulch or other soil amendments, and establishing native plantings. As we move through sites or move through the phases of the sites to 2 and 3, with plantings becoming more established, the type of work becomes more technical and requires a greater training that event-based volunteers cannot do. The activities that volunteer events usually focus on removal of species, one species specific. So when you give them plans, you're saying this is the one, we'll train them on that species. It'd be very difficult when we have many species in an area and having them identify plantings with the training that we get to give them in that day. With plantings, we have our planting events. So the first establishment is crucial to have volunteers. It's such large amount of work to plant the areas we plant that we wouldn't be able to do it without volunteers. What our volunteer calendar really looks like, or how they're doing it, is based off the availability of volunteers, city staff, along with site-specific needs. In the summers, we're focusing on noxious weed removal and management and supporting newly planted areas. We have 1 to 2 events a week with smaller groups going through. And then in the fall, we shift towards planting and erosion control. With we have larger events on Saturdays and smaller groups on every once in a while on a weekday. Spring is mulching, weed suppression, and water retention. So with most of our base being high school age students, our summer is the time we can have lots of events. In the winter, we have to have these isolated events for the weekend and try to get as many people out. These are our numbers for the last 5 years, which is when I started here. So I started collecting these, or these are the numbers that we have here, and we've moved up quite a lot for the number of events that we have. Of course, that addition adds in a lot more hours and a lot more plantings and the amount of acres that are under restoration.
How do you prioritize what areas become projects?
What areas become projects? Currently, I'm not taking on any more land. That is a great way of doing it. Mitigation sites are a big one. So when we're doing something, and that's why it's like, I'm not searching out sites anymore. We currently are building trails in Evan Creek. I had to build mitigation plans for that, which is to offset the impact that would be to build trails. So that's a legal thing we need to do for that application to go through. So that takes a priority, which becomes a mitigation site, which we have volunteers help with the planting and removal, but after a point, then it becomes just a site that I can focus on, or I have to do the work too, which is why we can't take on too much more work, because the work has shifted a lot. Going through those phases. So there's areas that volunteers can get a lot of work done in. And then once it gets to phase 2 or 3, we really rely on the stewards and rely on our city staff to do the work. When I say city staff, I mean me. For those sites, we do use parks maintenance for a lot of other things, but those, like, once it gets to a technical area, it becomes difficult to manage them. So how we choose the sites used to be through training our stewards. I say used to be, we haven't had a steward program
Let me
run.
rephrase it. I mean, are certain areas more environmentally degraded than others? Is there a priority on which
Yeah.
ones get to be restored?
Sorry,
That's what I was getting at.
I misunderstood. Yeah, no, but yeah, areas that are more degraded. Yeah, you're looking for something that's phase 1. You're looking for something that has degraded soils, a monoculture of a noxious weed that doesn't have benefits, is in an erosion area a lot of the times. And most of it has to do with our disturbance to an area. So when we've come through as a society, not like us, the city, has come through and mowed down an area, and now it's going to regrow from that to a field of blackberry. Is a good example. Another one is if there's an invasive plant that we need to get rid of that's crept into an area that's taken over, such as like knotweed. After we've killed it, we've cleared open a whole space for new noxious weeds come in because there's that disturbance. So areas that have been disturbed are what we look for.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, next slide. During the winter season, I oversee students from the University of Washington. This is another place that we get work from. The environmental science program at the University of Washington has all students complete a capstone project. To do this capstone project, students have to commit 150 hours to a specific nonprofit or government organization. This is a free program for the city, but comes with its own restrictions, as these are not our direct employees. UW students are completing a specific project with a site and scope of work that is laid out with a focus on education and the work only within the project scope. Over the past 2 years, the past 3 years, I didn't have that slide, the project has been taking a section of a large term restoration site, surveying their plots to better monitor the growth, adding them to GIS to have a better understanding of restoration sites long term. They work on creating and implementing a new restoration plan, or adjusting the original restoration plan and implementing it. And that fits the requirements that they are here for. Next slide. Okay. Outdoor education programs that we do within the restoration team are working with Nature Vision, facilitating outdoor education programs with high school students on wetland buffer riparian restoration at Evans Creek. We facilitated with again Nature Vision's elementary students on soil restoration and ecology courses at Evans Creek as well. We work with local school organizations like Margaret Mead's elementary school green team each year to run a course on ecology, working on a restoration site at East Sammamish Park. Work with high school students on environmental projects individually, like Eastside Catholics seniors, where students took on a restoration project that they met every week and learned how to remove noxious weeds and care for newly planted areas. All right, going on to our next slide. I'm going to go over a few current projects that we're working on. These are not all the projects. These are just some highlighted ones from the last year.
And
We-
Sebastian, these are where most of the volunteer work that you were talking about that happens throughout the summertime has been focused, or are these projects that you're specifically?
Not
focused
each of them, no. So this one, Big Rock Park South, we did have volunteers coming through for a lot within 2024, 2023, ending of 2023 and 2024. We just had an event there last weekend planting. So this one has a lot of volunteers. It's specifically been planting because Big Rock Park South and the areas that we were planting weren't completely disturbed. We were doing what we're doing decommissioning of areas. So areas that had previously been trails and walked on, so no invasive plants have gotten in there yet. The soils were just were degraded, but there wasn't the removal process, which each site is different when we get to them. So as Big Rock Park has been open, been working to ensure that the neighbors were not affected by traffic as well. So we planted native privacy fences for them. And after doing soil testing, we presented them with pallets that they could choose from to help them have buy-in on the types of plants we were going to have volunteers plant in. And these are in the sections that were not open yet, and they're continuing on the section that's still not open yet, which is why we have events happening still last week. And then when Washington Trail Association had finished doing their trail work, we went and decommissioned all of the old trails that were at the site. And this decommissioning is what you see in most of these photos here, is the planting along where trails were.
Just curious, so does the mulch come from trees that are taken out in other areas and repurposed for mulch on these projects?
Sometimes, not that mulch, but sometimes it does. That is a convenient way of doing it. If we had more of the capacity, I'd like to see more of that done. I do not have the capacity to go chip the trees that have fallen, if that were a good thing. And then where we're putting the trees that get chipped, after the bomb cyclone, I know we did chip a good amount of them, and I will take from that pile. If I know that there's not invasive trees in it, I will take from it. The problem is with chip drops, I don't know what comes in those chips, so I could be causing more disturbance by using them.
That's a good point.
Yeah. If you're in your own landscaped area, I fully support people doing chip drops and getting that.
And can you test for mulch to see if these might be within it, or?
You could, but I mean, I'm thinking of large chips. You're not gonna get it in ground mulch, but to get something into ground mulch, we do not have the capacity to do. I was flipping over like cedar chips and mulch interchangeably because they can do the same things. As you see in there, that is ground mulch. You would have to test for that, but with like cedar chips, there's like the chipped up areas, you would need to, we wouldn't have the capacity to test them. You'd have to go through each chip and look at them. If it's a mix where you have, where people drop off their trees at the transfer station, that's always gonna be a mix of things. So I don't know what's coming back. Like it would take more effort to try to check each of them.
Right.
But if I go to a place that I know was just shipping only cedars, I can take that. So like after the cyclone, we had a lot of trees that we knew exactly what they were. And we chipped them at ESP, like day after day, East Manor Park. Those were fine to take. That's, I can see exactly what's going in and what to use.
It's great.
Quick question is for like Greg's clarification on the different phases, like which phase would this park have been considered when you started on it?
So the park as a whole,
Or this area?
this area, I put it still at phase 1 until you've planted things. Because you're still at a phase 1, but you aren't coming, because it's got degraded soils, but you're not coming in to remove invasives. You're still planting. Once they've been planted, we'd be moving into phase 2, which is having inputs. I didn't come and monitor it. I did come and monitor it. I didn't come and have to do as much maintenance as I would to something that hadn't moved into phase 2. But there is still inputs. We'd still want to, I went and watered plantings. I had people removing weeds around them. That's still adding those inputs. Phase 3 is when they're really, the plantings have established enough that you are doing a little bit of maintenance around it, but it's fully established. These plantings are nowhere near fully established. We're still going in and pulling them from what didn't make it, which happens a lot with our plantings because of volunteers. There's an educational aspect to getting people to plant and also getting the buy-in from the community. So we have to teach everyone how to plant specifically, but we aren't always assured that it's going to go in that way. Imagining like young families, with little kids might toss it there. You can't always expect them, so that we do have a good amount of die-off every year from plants, and we just expect that and go back in and plant out those areas, those specific plants. So that's part of that resurveying of an area every year.
I have one more quick question about the mulch. So for that mixed mulch that you were talking about, that you'd have to go through hand by hand, what would you use that type of mulch for? Or would you just not touch it?
Would I not? No, I wouldn't, because it's for restoration. So you can use, I heavily support people using it in their landscaping areas. Something you can monitor, something you can come back for. I'm not gonna look back at all these sites. If I come back to a site 1 year after we did a mulching, that's a whole year that something could have been in that seed bank. If you have your own front yard, you will see what comes and grows and pull it out. Like that is you would constantly be monitoring it.
Got it.
So I personally do not use mixed chips resources. That's not something I would like to, I try to avoid introducing anything into a site that wasn't previously there. Any species that wasn't previously there. Yeah, so that comes also into making sure that we clean off our tools and our boots, so we're not taking invasive seeds when we work at one site and bring them over to the other site. Yeah, that answer your question?
Yeah.
Great. The next one, so this one does not involve any volunteers. This is one of the, I have frequently projects that are just specific to me, that if you request from the city, the parks, or something we need to do for a homeowner that has been affected by something that's happened in the parks. So this was a shoreline restoration project at Beaver Lake Park. The goal here was to reestablish shoreline along Beaver Lake in an area that was not designated as a beach, because the buffer that's needed in between those two open shorelines had been taken away by people fishing and starting to hang out there a lot more. So we needed to close this gap. How we did this was we planted willows really densely in live stakes, which are the stakes that are coming out of there, 10 feet into the shore during peak rain season. So once the water table is all the way up, as the water table recedes, we then have more of those plantings established further up the bank. The second part was using island planting mats. And these you can see in the grain or the burlap. And this is where we create, so the bottom left one there and bottom right one. So you see just a mat of plantings. These are things that can root when they don't have direct soil. So we're using lots of rushes. We're using lots of skunk cabbage, lady ferns, spirea. And we place those into a burlap mat that is then staked down in the middle of the water. So it leaves a gap in between. This establishes shoreline long-term and makes it more dense along it. So why these projects, we don't have volunteers help out in, it can be a lot more technical. Going to another project, this is next year's photos, or next season's photos of where that shoreline went back. You know, we reestablished it with a lot of native plantings. And of course, you can see the burlaps all the way up to like here is where we started getting a lot of those plantings have come back that we wouldn't have easily been able to plant underneath like 4 feet of water. But they can establish without their roots being directly in the ground. And then when the season comes, they will reroot themselves into it. Yeah, and I think I got one more photo from that one. No, okay, here is, I can go next one, yeah. There it is. Okay, it's still lag. This is the Evans Creek Preserve riparian restoration site. I have two different sites on this one. So this is a continuation of riparian restoration project along Evans Creek within the preserve. The section focused on an area that had been overgrown with noxious grasses. So it's predominantly reed canary grass and blackberry, which every season was those die off, we lose that bank of it. So we went through and densely planted, again, live stake willows and red azure dogwood, things that would be more long-term that wouldn't die off every year and hold that soil in, retaining it. So next one here is the Evans Creek erosion projects that we were doing this last year. This is a kind of continuous project that we've been doing for a while. The erosion control along Evans Creek switchbacks continually gets cut through and we have the slope slide. It is a landslide zone and very hazardous for us to not retain as much soil as we can along those banks. So to deter people from walking on this, we try to first put these fences up. They don't stay up that long. We have to continuously go and re-put them on there. And then by placing jute, which is this larger mesh that you can see that has bigger holes through it, it's going to hold the soil on there. And we can plant smaller, what we call plugs, like a very small 4-inch, just bare root of something right into the soil wall. And then we also live stake it with native plants. So we are using predominantly snowberry on the site. Snowberry grows really well there, and you can propagate it really easily by putting live stakes into the jute to hold it up.
How long does it take to establish effective erosion control? Is that something that takes years or decades or?
Years, decades, you would, if you're really consistently trying to work on it, but years if it doesn't get affected by other people. Like disturbance comes a lot of times from us. Disturbance, it can also happen from trees falling, massive weather patterns, lots of things can cause disturbance, so it doesn't always have to just come back to there. But if you're looking at erosion control on a slope like this, if it were on a private property, not being walked through by hundreds of people each week, not having people trying to mountain bike down it, I believe it would only take a few years to establish at least that vegetation that would hold the soil on there. Once we have that, the natural erosion still can happen. We could try to build it up by adding wattles, which are like large tubes full of straw, and we build banks. I did that as a fun project prior to working here in the Duwamish Green Belts. I built up banks because of how much those slopes will cause landslides and are so degraded that we have to actually rebuild up soil layers. That can take a long period of time to do. In this type of scenario, we're really just looking for vegetation to retain the soil that's already there, not trying to rebuild up more. Okay. And the next project, and our last project here, we're going to talk about the Lower Commons wetland, afforestation site, which was started a long time ago. But over the last few years, we've been having our UW students go through here. This is the restoration site. We've had the capstone students resurveying, which is great because we have old maps of what was originally planted there. So we can see what survived, which trees have grown, what trees are dying, what areas are experiencing the most regrowth from invasives, which in this site, it's predominantly blackberry and red canary grass. Over the past few years, the capstone students have been taking on each a 1 to 2 acre area, resurveying it, and then removing the noxious weeds within those areas and replanting. So we've had they take on 1/2 acre. So in total, we've gotten through 2.5 acres of the site. And the last year's students cleared and then hydroseeded. This area did pretty well. The area that was cleared in this past winter was not hydroseeded due to having the construction gone through. We had a lot of gaps in the time that we could come into it. So it didn't get hydroseeded, but the planting area adjacent to it is still doing pretty well. Since the spring of 2024, we've had 25 volunteer events around this project, equaling 1,554 hours from the community. I am done with my presentation. If anyone has any questions about it.
How do you measure success?
Metrics. I use the phases. So you have these actual metrics that you use to say what is the aerial coverage of native plantings. Most of the time with your 20-year growth plan that you establish, your planting or your restoration plan that we create for a site prior to having it is a 20-year growth plan of what canopy we were looking for. In the Northwest, it's almost always old growth forest. That it's not always achievable everywhere. Like, our stormwater ponds, they can't be old growth forests. We do have a pollinator meadow project. The wetland's not going to be an old growth forest, but we are trying to establish native canopy around it. So based off that, we're using the metrics of what's the invasive coverage, what's the native coverage, what's the biodiversity. So
Are
really,
you factoring for a certain amount of failure for the plantings? Like-
no,
Yeah.
I plant for a 60% success rate. 70 is like what I shoot for,
Okay.
but 60% success rate is what I plant for. That's in my restoration plantings, and that's actually higher than I think a lot of times when you see people planting into natural areas. It's very difficult to get plants to establish if you don't know where exactly each species needs to be. You haven't tested the soil in multiple areas. A lot of times it's a different 20 feet over if it's been a disturbed site. We can have one type of soil here and completely different from construction, whatever has happened.
Do you amend the soil if it's deficient in certain nutrients you're looking for? or-
If I have the capacity and if the problem is large enough, we do lots of soil amendments. When I say if we have capacity, if it's just degraded, we may just be planting things that are in that degraded soil that are meant for degraded soil. So we have lots of plants that are, champions of restoration that are great being planted in degraded soil and transferring it. It depends on the plant. Like, I don't like planting alders, but there's places to plant alders. Alders are great. They're nitrogen fixators. They can get in and they can grow fast and shape things out. There's certain sites where like that wouldn't be in the planting plan whatsoever, but it depends on what our original plan was, which is why the resurveying is the readjustment of that plan at times. Or having like the UW students go through, it's like we want you to readjust because it's been such a long time since the original restoration plan. Once you resurvey, collect that data, look at the old one, see what worked and see what didn't work. We expected it to be at this point, it's not here. What can we do going forward to be successful within that specific niche area?
Looks like we have a question online.
Yes, this is Mizan Rashid, and thank you. It's a great presentation, and you guys are doing a lot of good work. Do you have enough volunteers?
Do I have enough volunteers? I don't. That's very honest. It's hard to retain good volunteers. We get a lot of high school students who leave. So by the time we get volunteers in and they're trained up, they're leaving, and we have just by the demographics of the city, we don't have many young-ish people that are after high school age here. And then there's not a very large volunteer base from like what we've seen, at least within our restoration sites, of middle age working. We don't have that demographic in it. We are looking for more volunteers always.
So what age group you typically need?
So each project has a different age restriction, actually. I'm looking for 14 to 60 be great. The large range. I would just like people who are interested and want to learn different skills and techniques and want to keep coming back.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure you probably tried maybe working with the high school seniors and with the science teacher. If they want to do their senior project on restoration or different types, that could be another.
I've had high school students do their senior projects with me. We predominantly get our volunteer base from high schools.
Okay.
It is the majority of what we get is high school students out here for volunteers. And I was saying the issue with that is not the high school students, it's that they leave after they turn 18. And we've spent 2-3 years of really good there, and we get that volunteer knowledge, people who are looking to like lead events of their own, be there, that we no longer then have coming to those volunteer events.
No, thank you. And then there are so many, potential restoration sites within the city. How do you prioritize which site you will select?
So with selecting it there's a few different variables. Selecting it can be from things that just end up on my workbook, which I was saying through like the removal of noxious weeds that we need to remove. Like knotweed, when we remove it, we may need to go back and then replant an area. It could be the opening of a new park and having to do sites within that. It could be Could be that it's adjacent to an area is sometimes helpful, like if it's, we expand a restoration site. So Evans Creek Preserve is a great example of that. There's 6 restoration sites there. But that's because we are expanding and moving into new sites after we've gotten one into a phase, so it's easier to manage a site that's adjacent to a site. So you can do phase 1 next to one that's phase 2 or 3, and you're just opening up more area. Prioritizing which get work has to do with that resurveying we do every year and reevaluating what phase each site's at, and then what the capacity we have. So how many volunteer events we can do, what capacity the city staff have, and what takes urgency. So that is how we make our work plan every year.
But for example, if you had a natural disaster and there was a landslide causing erosion in, say, a salmon bearing area, would that jump to the top of your priority list in terms of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be something I would like to tackle first thing. Depends on whose zone it's in. We're talking about going into a salmon bearing area. That may be something more that we actually have specialists come in and deal with quicker. I would love to contract out more specialists. I think that was needed at times, but what we do in my team is more what work the city's directly doing without. I used to run specialist teams for an ecology firm prior to coming here. So I was like, that's what we use a lot of the times when we have something that's more urgent. So I do
That's more the
understand.
exception than the rule, right?
Yeah, well, and it goes in more the volunteers can't go into certain areas and projects that need more technical expertise that are large like that. That's when we would have to have a team come in that's not something that like we're doing.
Right. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Another question?
Mizan, did you have more?
Yeah, just a final question that how the Sustainability Commission can help your work?
I would like to know what y'all are working on. I think that's always very helpful to know what initiatives are happening here, what direction things are going, especially as we're going into the urban forestry plan. That's pretty tied into my job. Yeah, that's I think the best things I could get is just to know where the city wants to go, what's happening. Thank you for asking that question. I wish I had a better answer.
Thank you.
Sounds like you need us at volunteer events.
Oh, yeah, you physically.
What a great segue to my question, which is where's the best way that we can find out when and where the volunteer?
So we have a city web page. You can go on it. It's Sammamish Galaxy Digital. It's through the city's page. You can find it easy enough. So if you just go onto the city's page, you can see how to volunteer. And we post the new volunteer events every quarter. Is when we do so we'll post up about 2 or 3 months. But if you want to know what's coming way down the pipeline, we do our list out like every quarter. So you can always ask, hey, is there an event coming 4 months down? We might not have it on the website, but we'll probably have it scheduled on our plan. Yeah.
So one of the goals of the urban forest management plan is either to maintain or increase the canopy on the plateau, right? And so that some of us have communicated that to like our HOAs as trees are failing or communities are considering, hey, what trees should we replant in areas? We've referred people back to the urban forest management plan because there's information there like, hey, these 5 types of trees survive better on the plateau than others.
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot. There's definitely the right plant in the right place is crucial, and having that list of trees is really important. It's very different than what the street trees are going to be. If you're planting it in your own yard, that's a big one. So like we may have a list on the city's page that's going to say what are our approved like street trees, but those are completely different than what you'd want as a deep rooted, sturdy tree that's not like that can grow a little bit larger.
Well, some communities like Kalani, the tree roots have actually subverted the sidewalks and roads, and some of those had to be removed, replanted.
That's very very common for the city to go through.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I just saw the Seattle's like street tree presents at the urban forestry or arboriculture meeting for urban foresters. It was really interesting to just hear what he's seen over the last like 20 years. So just Seattle switching over, because each area has different tree plantings for so many streets. Like just like what's been successful, what they thought was gonna be successful and what ended up not being successful.
Well, the planning may not have been as thoughtful 30 years ago as it would be today, right?
Right, yeah, I mean, that's, it's not just planning for what infrastructure you're gonna need later, but planning on why you want that tree. Is it because you want an area that has less pollen or like less, sap? Or, I mean, so like if they're planting for things that are more trying to get rid of one problem, it's like, were you looking at the other ones? Were you looking at like what other factors would come in?
How do you do, or do you do noxious weed control in wetlands?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I have certification to do it. Yeah, I do noxious weed control in wetlands. It's pretty,
It's
very much so one of my independent jobs is
okay,
doing that.
it seems like that'd be a little bit trickier, since you might be slogging around in a couple feet of water.
I definitely don't have volunteers do it. No, it's trickier, definitely. It's, I mean, there's courses you need to take and certifications you get before you can do removal and in wetlands. For that reason, it is.
Another question I've got, on your list, you've also got clematis.
Yeah.
A lot of people grow that as a,
I'm aware. It's a real problem. Yeah, no, looking at what the county's noxious weeds are is great. If you're looking at things, a lot of things you bought like 5-10 years ago are banned. Like you are that, and that's how we really get most of our noxious weeds. It's from horticulture, it's from landscaping, it's that we were brought there and they're just not supposed to be in a natural area. And a lot of times we remove. A great example is yellow archangel. It is one of my least favorite plants, and it was sold for years up until maybe 2018 or 2019. It was sold in hanging baskets, and it just wreaks havoc in natural areas and grows in wetlands. So it becomes a problematic site because one of the only ways you can remove it would be using chemicals. And then I don't want to use chemicals, even if I have a wetland certified chemical that I can use in that area. It's pretty, it's nice, it's from the mint family. People love what it looks like.
yeah, mint's another one.
Really easy to track around though. It can grow from the smallest little fragment. So if you see those signs that I put out there in the few areas we have distribution, it's talking about that specific one, because if I remove it in Evans Creek, it's causing erosion, like right underneath someone's house. So like we can't just directly remove it, and it's going to keep going down that slope and keep causing problems. So we need to actually come back and have a direct plan of spraying it and then adding erosion tarps right after that. So that way it's got to be quick projects so we don't lose that soil.
Yeah, you've got one of my least favorite plants on here, morning glory.
Yeah, bindweed. It's a very frustrating one as well.
It took me probably 10 years to get it out of my blueberries.
Yeah, small fragments, really hard to grab the roots. Yeah, so that's how we look at each species too. We really want to break down like how we can get rid of it, what's the best management for it. So if a lot of times it's not hand removal when it comes to like bindweed, you may be looking more at sheet mulching over a whole area and starting anew. That could be fine.
An observation I've made, a lot of people in this city have their yard maintained by a service.
Mhm.
And in my neighborhood, we don't have sidewalks. We've got a kind of a gravel berm at the edge of the road. So to control weeds and that, I will observe some of these services out there spraying.
Yeah.
And I would bet a lot of money that what they're spraying is Roundup.
Yeah, I believe that. I can believe that. We have restricted chemicals that we put out to our contractors. Now, I don't know how that applies to HOAs. And I'm not saying that someone else knows. I am not going to answer that. Where those
It's just an observation. I didn't expect an answer.
Yeah. No, we have that. Our list is for what we have in like maintenance, public works, streets, what they can use. And then what we put on the contractors that we put in. I don't know what jurisdiction we have even to actually put it on what your homeowner can use.
Well, a couple of sprays a year of 45% vinegar will do damn near the same job.
It's lots of different things you can do for each species too, figuring out what you can do for each species certain things work on one and would do the opposite to another, like, you know, can actually benefit or make a plant thrive.
I just wanted to comment, I've done maybe 4 or 5 restoration events with Sammamish, and they're always super fun. And you get such a good workout, like pulling that blackberry, I did the Evans Creek blackberry, and it was fabulous. So if anybody, if we wanted to do, we're doing a field trip, so I'd be up if we wanted as commissioners showing up a day and we could publicize it somehow. Wanna meet up with your commissioners, we'll be there.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great idea for Arbor Day next year.
Or bar, okay, yeah.
We're going
that's
into
kinda far.
planting. Yeah, it was like plantings right now.
Right now,
Yeah, it's like Arbor Day doesn't land in planting season, which is really funny.
I know.
It's a national one, it's like, it's not our planting season.
Yeah.
But
So
planting
I'd
season's
be up
right
for it. I
now.
don't know if that's something, another thing to arrange, but
Definitely.
I've had fun at them, they're really fun.
Yeah, we have a volunteer event tomorrow. Could hear y'all back there.
Friday.
There's a planting event tomorrow, or not tomorrow, sorry, Saturday. There's a planting event on Saturday at Evans Creek, on the new trail decommissioning.
And Sebastian and Francine are always really good about including the volunteer events on the city website. So we have an event calendar on sammamish.us, which you can go and you can see for the month. And usually it's about 1 month in advance as well. So you can make sure you get that time blocked out. And one other thing that I want to absolutely give Sebastian credit for is Sammamish was recognized as a tree city for the first time in 2024. And a lot of those metrics and work that went into that certification are directly attributed to Sebastian and the volunteer program that we have. So
Yeah.
we're gonna be recertifying again this year. I'll reach out to you to get those numbers and
Yeah.
hopefully we can get some more commissioners out at some of our upcoming events.
So why is foxglove on your list? Is it because it's got
It's
physicality?
another terrible plant. It's a very large seeding, hyper seeding, it's extremely deep rooted. It's beautiful, but it causes havoc, it becomes a monoculture really quickly, and all of the things that are on the list are not. They're not beneficial within natural areas, that's specifically like once it gets to a forested area,
Right.
it's not being managed by a homeowner. So like a lot of these things come from homeowners and they become then something that's really problematic when it's just in an open space on its own.
Well, I can tell already as a homeowner who's got maybe half a dozen foxglove. They're more, I'm guessing, than just volunteers. I didn't plant in my yard. Reasoning, extrapolating from that to the fact that it could populate larger areas is something I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, no, I mean, I mean, they're very prolific seeder. So they have so much seeds that come out and get spread so easily that that's one of the reasons it causes disturbance. Each plant has a different reason why it dominates an area. We just don't want a monoculture of any singular plant. And there's other reasons a plant may be considered noxious. But not every noxious plant is being successful in an area for the same reason. So some plants are really successful because they're really good cedars. Some, like the yellow archangel, it's actually not that great of a cedar, but it can grow up in the tiniest fragment and it's easy to break off. Same with bindweed. You've got little tiny or morning glory. That little tiny fragment of the stem that gets knocked off from a weed whip and gets tossed over and starts growing another one. So different species have different ways of being successful.
Christy, it sounds like our volunteer event's gonna be at Steve's house.
No.
Well,
My house.
I do my share of weeding, but I got a big garden, so I'm probably out there not anymore. I'm gonna just retire until next spring.
All right, well, thank you so much,
Yeah, thank you so
Sebastian. I
much.
think we all learned a ton.
If you have any other questions, feel free to email me, contact me, and I'm happy to answer them.
All right. So next, we just wanted to have a quick discussion on some outreach opportunities for fall and winter time. Obviously, the farmers market concluded in September. A lot of the good weather and kind of big community events that happen throughout the spring and summertime. There aren't as many going into the winter, but there are some opportunities, including On October 30th, there's a trunk or treat event at City Hall. And then there's also in the winter time, Frosty Fest, I believe was last year. We don't have it scheduled for this year yet. So those are kind of the two upcoming holiday themed. They draw a lot of the community. Trunk or treat tends to be a lot more youth. Frosty Fest is kind of the same, very family oriented events. Similar to Earth Day, but without the Earth Day focus. So just wanting to kind of gauge commission interest so that if these are events that we want to have a presence at, we can kind of plan for that, make sure we have materials and commissioner buy-in as well. These aren't events that I've historically tabled at, but with the increase of focus on outreach and education this year and increased engagement by you all, really coming out to support at these events, I think it's something we can definitely look at, but I just really wanted to kind of see what you all think of that.
I'm out of town on the 30th and the 1st, so.
Got
I
it.
was doing-
The first is one of our typical recycling events, so it's not typical for the commission to really table. It's really trying to move the flow of cars logistically. There's not a lot of time to really do outreach to folks.
True.
But trunk or treat could be a good time to talk about, plastic recycling, sustainability tips for the holidays, hand out some goodies to kiddos as part of the trick or treat event. I would need to order materials if that's something you all are interested in. So sounds like we've got one out of towner.
Is that actually Halloween?
No, that's
The
gonna
day-
be the
Thursday.
Oh,
Thursday
the
before.
Thursday, okay,
Yeah.
I can do that.
That gets sent to me on Wednesday.
Oh.
You said it's not posted. That's my team that does this.
Great.
Just got.
I just got posted.
Well, that 17th.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'll follow this up with an email so you all can kind of individually respond, but while we're all here together and we're thinking about it, I think there's an opportunity there.
Yeah, I think that sounds great.
What is Frosty Fest?
Maybe Sebastian can answer that.
That's our winter festival.
As
It's our
someone,
winter one.
as someone who's been living here for how many years?
We don't do a holidays one anymore. We do a winter festival, so Frosty Fest.
Okay.
Their
Is
winter
it
festival.
indoor or
It
outdoor?
is.
Oh.
It's been the last couple of years. It's been at CW. This year, I believe it's here at City Hall.
Oh.
Believe.
And the kids.
You're the
have
posting,
craft
we'll
and
tell you.
stuff? Different craft.
It's each. I don't want to talk about this year's because I have not been looped in. I guess I just saw the post.
Oh.
My team does these, so
Okay.
I'm on the recreation team within the
Oh.
parks. They do them, so I just got
Oh.
the notification on Wednesday what the day was, and then we're gonna have about it in like a few days.
Okay.
The one who plans it is Summer. She's she does the planning for the city or for those events. Last year we had different tables, so there was like cookie making
Oh, fun.
and I think gingerbread houses. We bring in some like vendors, like the ones we bring in for other events, so like that make balloon animals. Yeah, I was trying to remember balloon animals, face painting, and we've had carolers from schools do like performances at CW. I believe we're not doing it at CW this year, so we won't have that stage element. Yeah, but just different like people said we do it with like who else works with it is usually the library, the YMCA has like a booth,
No, that's cool.
just different activities.
Fun.
And that's November 17th, or is there a date?
So
Summer.
yeah, so it looks like December 17th is when Frosty Fest is scheduled for, so I'd appreciate some support from you all, like
Yeah.
brainstorming, coming up with some fun, creative ideas of how we could bring sustainability to those events and engage with people, so we're not just there handing out flyers, we're really trying to, have the wheels, start some conversations and get people excited about the work that we do.
The idea that just came to the top of my head is like, cookie decoration, you get like pre-shaped sugar cookies or something, or whatever type of cookie, just like, and have like icing or whatever sprinkles, whatever, for people to like make their own little cookie tree. Like it's just a small thing that could be fun for that. Things along those things.
Okay. I'm taking all ideas and
Yeah.
I'll work with our rec team and see what we can get. Any other off the top of your head?
Sure, like there's a lot of waste generated during the holidays, recycling, like.
Could do a
paper,
sorting station.
Sorting, sure, yeah,
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
If if the A table or our table is doing like snowflake cutouts, we have like a bin for people to bring those cutouts, so they know exactly where they all go.
I'll have to think about that, but I did have an idea for prizes for kids, that would be kind of cool.
Love it. I'm taking all
So-
ideas.
So if you go, and I'm happy to help with this, but I've seen at booths, really good idea, giving out, you know, like when you go to the library and you could buy like, during their library sales, they're like 10 books, but giving kids books. Having that as a prize, like, and we could try to find science focused or environmental books.
That's a good idea.
Kids love those, pick out books. So just as another prize, I know we've talked about prizes, you can get them pretty cheap at like library sales.
Another idea, and I don't know if this requires partnership, but I have a friend who volunteers at the Bellevue Botanical Gardens. She does the Christmas light display. And I've given her strands and strands of lights that are broken, and they actually recycle them there. They have people that go through every bulb and they reuse them. So I don't know if there's an angle towards holiday light recycling, but something to think about as well, right? Because the other options, they just go in the garbage.
We have string lights with like half a dozen of those.
Right, yeah.
You wanna head out?
Okay. Good. Okay, so these are thinking about December. We do have that October event coming up a little bit sooner. Any ideas? I mean, I can get some little sustainability related handouts. There's a bunch of different sites that I have from some of our sister cities that they get little trinkets that are a little bit less than the plastic tchotchkes. They're
Well, the
You know.
booth and the wheel are always a big hit, right?
Yeah.
So maybe it's giveaways that are more like autumn themed, I guess, I don't know. Like normally we hand out like seeds, right?
Mhm.
Exactly, yeah.
Or the
But they're
book.
also there to learn something about the environment too, right?
What are you asking for, October?
yeah, any fun ideas for the trunk or treat event, recognizing that it's gonna be a lot of kids in costumes going around, very short attention spans. They
Yeah.
want something to grab,
Right.
take home with them. that
Spin the
can
wheel,
remind
answer your
them.
question, get a piece of candy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if we're able to get more of the pins or like the buttons, because the kids really
Okay.
seem to like those at one of the earlier events.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that could be another thing to be able to hand out alongside other stuff, and that way it's like, they're not just, because like, yes, they can get whatever candy, because we're gonna have to give some form of sweet to them, because that's what the event is for.
Yeah.
But that way they also have something that's like more tied to the commission, to like environment, to sustainability stuff that might stick a little bit.
Love that. Okay. I'll send out a follow-up email to kind of actually understand who can show up. Costumes are highly encouraged. And then we'll continue to kind of think towards that December 17th date, something we can also revisit at the December meeting. I also just want to quickly gauge for November, I've set up a tentative tour with Republic at their materials recovery facility and education center in Soto in Seattle.
Fourth and Lander. is that what it is?
I don't have the exact address, but it's probably right
Close
near
enough.
there.
Close
Yeah.
to it, Okay.
What was the date?
So we're looking at 2 dates. I specifically asked them to give us dates as close to the November Sustainability Commission date so that it was kind of a time that you all are available. They really only do these tours during business hours, which I recognize can be tough with folks who work or have school. So we're looking at Thursday or Friday, kind of in the afternoon, after lunchtime, but before end of day. So they do have some flexibility. And I just wanted to gauge while we're all here, if there are specific times of day, or, you know, if you know off the top of your head, Friday is a great day for me to call out early or, you know, take some time, maybe a long lunch. And if folks prefer it to be closer to that lunchtime or later in the day, that'll just help me really narrow down the time, because we would like to have as much participation as possible from commissioners. So that y'all get the benefits.
13th or the 14th.
Yes, the 13th or the 14th of November. And again, we can do a follow-up email, but while we're here all in one place.
They're gonna require a waiver, to provide the personal protective equipment for the tour and all of that.
Correct. Yeah, so that'll be something that'll go out ahead of time as well, and then we'll be able to suit up while we're there.
We also might want to coordinate carpooling there.
Absolutely, commissioners can coordinate carpooling. That was kind of also a follow-up is are folks able to come directly from work? Are we needing to do kind of a community van ride share from City Hall?
I'm good at pretty much any time either of those days, so.
Right now, it looks good, but I have to look at right now on my calendar.
Every day's Saturday for me.
I know, some more retired folks now, so. Nick, are those days that you're working typically variable?
Yeah, they're good. So,
Okay, great. Okay, so it sounds like we've got some good availability.
Nazan have. Nazan, are you there?
Yes.
Just, since you're here, wanted to check and see whether or not there was a preference for the 13th or 14th, or if you thought you could join us for a tour of Republic's facility.
I need to check. I will get back to Rose on that.
Okay.
Sounds good. And then obviously since Brooke and Tim aren't here, they'll be getting
Yeah.
back to me as well, but. That sounds great. The only other thing for today is we did put together an infographic for the East Side Climate Partnership, which was linked in the agenda. This is something that the 6 East Side cities have been working towards. It's mostly used for kind of information sharing with partnership organizations, new groups that we're just getting introduced to, as well as grant applications. But it's also just got some good talking points for you all if folks ask, and we'll have these at events moving forward as well. Sometimes, especially when you're talking about Energy Smart East Side and the heat pump campaign, that's kind of a subset of the East Side Climate Partnership. So just wanted to make sure you all had that as a resource for as you're talking with your HOAs, community groups, etc.
Speaking of metrics, last year, remind me, maybe it was in February, is that when we did a look back on how we did against our climate action plan goals for the year? So it
Yes.
was February timeframe.
Yeah, we
Okay.
typically schedule that. We have one position that will be up for, it'll be open for possible reappointment or new applicants on the commission. And we schedule that for February so that I have a chance to get the data together from the previous year. And then that way, any new commissioners really have that look back on the year ahead and have all of the same information that you all will have moving forward into the next year.
Okay. And then that's also around the same time when we decide what goals we want to tackle for next year.
Yeah, some of the
Yeah.
priorities for the commission, just like we prioritize some of the climate action plan topics. Next year is somewhat set with our work plan because we will be looking at later in the year, the urban forest management plan update will start depending on some state factors. And then we'll also be starting to look at the climate action plan, some of those actions that may need kind of an administrative update. And then just are continuing with the heat pumps, some of these evergreen items
Right.
that aren't going away.
Right, they're not done.
Yeah.
But they may not require a lot of attention from the commission.
Exactly, and I know this year we were really focused on transportation and greenhouse gas emissions from buildings and energy. I think that will continue to be a priority, but there might be space to focus a little bit more on natural resources, really trying to help bolster our volunteer program and community engagement around some of that work as well. Ah. Anything else that folks wanted to touch on? This is kind of that time for commissioner conversations. Anything that's come up, information you wanted to highlight, questions that you had.
Yeah, one of the things I'm concerned about is we keep this King County emissions inventory
Yes.
keeps getting pushed back, and that's our metric.
That is our metric,
Without
yeah.
that, we don't know how good we're doing.
Yeah, so we've been waiting patiently. There's been a couple scope changes and emissions inventory, I guess, housekeeping that the county has been wanting to do before giving us those final numbers. As soon as we have those, we'll be sharing them with the commission. Part of the reason we did the field trip in November is because I really would like to say, like, I'm 90% sure we're gonna have that emissions report by December. I know a lot of cities are really pushing for that, to have that information going into the next year. A lot of cities will be updating their climate action plans and do rely on those numbers. So we're not alone in waiting with bated breath for that report to be released. And once I have that, and we've had a chance to kind of look at those numbers internally, put a report together and weigh it against our climate action plan metrics, then we'll of course be bringing that to the commission for a broader discussion. And I would anticipate that might be, multiple meetings that we're focused on that and helping us reprioritize, maybe diving into some of the data, possibly having King County come talk with you all about the methodology behind it, and doing our best to make use of that because it's going to be hugely informative.
So I had two things. One, we didn't talk about the switcher mode or
Didn't.
something. Switcher, are you guys still doing, is that still? I
Yeah.
haven't seen anything from the city recently on that.
So
Is
it did just start last week. So we
Okay.
have we only get 2 social media posts for sustainability each month to
Okay.
balance with everything else going on. So we
Okay.
do have those queued up.
Okay.
We are working with some of our neighboring cities on, coordination, ultimately trying to get the word out as much as we can.
Okay, so if we do what we talked about, social media posts, we send that to you. Is that the plan?
Yes, so I have some
Good.
basic social media posts queued up based on, they provide us with materials. And blurbs and all of that, but I think it would be a lot more impactful if it was, a video or testimony coming from
Yeah.
commissioners. So thank you for the reminder.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. The other thing is I had 2 different neighbors stop me because of our pictures in the guide. And they wanted to show me their like pulling out their grass and putting in plants.
That's great.
And the question that came up, and this was something I had too, I pulled out my ivy and I, have purchased native plants and I'm trying to do that and reduce my grass, and so are they. But it took me a while to find the, I went on the King County website and they actually have plans there. Like if you wanted to pull out your grass, here is what you could plant. Is there something with Sammamish that maybe they'd make that easier to find? Like people who want to reduce their grass? Like, do you have
Is that one of the links on the back, the sustainable Smash guide? Because I know that was.
Was it the King County
I
one?
don't know if that's the key. I know that in general something we had talked about.
Yeah.
But somehow that'd be great if it's there, because I found it actually.
Yeah, it has the King County list.
Good.
It also has, so it has the King County Northwest Yard and Garden list of native species and some plants that's suited to your space.
Good.
As well as just how to create wildlife habitats.
Cause that's good. So
Yeah.
they have actual, if you go on there, I think it's the same one, they actually have like front yard plants for native plants, which I found super helpful if you wanna try to do it yourself. So
Yeah.
that's good to know it's on there. So I'll just tell them to look for that.
Yeah.
And we link to that on the city website as well, but we talk a lot about not reinventing the wheel. When those resources are there, especially when they're the county resources, we tend to just direct people right to there. And
That's
then
good. So I think it had an impact. I mean, people definitely saw it. and-
We got an email from
We got an
from
email.
a steward reaching out about it. So
Yeah,
Yeah, I got tagged by a couple of neighbors about showing up in the guide.
did they say, why do you still have holly?
No, actually, it's in the backyard, but
Oh, that's.
yeah, but I think grass ought to be a noxious weed as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really inspiring. It's like, now I'm like, I've done a lot in my backyard and now I want to move to the front, so. It was good.
great.
Yeah.
Quick question, revisiting the switch your trips. Thank you for
Yeah.
the reminder. Have you all signed up and started logging trips? Not yet?
not yet, but I'm also planning on getting my biker card soon, so I'm gonna do it at the same time.
Cool. I encourage you again all to participate, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, reshare our city social media posts when those come out. And I'll send a reminder with some of our dates and coordination to sign up for that.
So
along with-
walking counts and switch your trips.
Yeah.
Okay.
Skateboarding too, Steve.
I'm not gonna say.
So did you have?
Live till my next birthday.
One other thing I wanted to add from the city council meeting earlier this week, cause some of the admin, different departments were doing presentations on their work plan highlights from this past year. And the city manager department specifically called out the sustainability commission for doing good stuff. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
highlight that. The specific notes were the Sustainable Sandwich Guide, Green Purchasing Guide, continuing to work with Eastside Climate Partnership on Energy Smart East Side Heat Pump Program, and beginning the partnership with sustainability ambassadors. And so I just wanted to highlight that, like during the most recent council meeting, like the city manager department was highlighting the stuff that we've been doing.
That's
And
great.
Steve's personal article on the pumps. That was great.
You all got one, don't you?
Rose, hope you got some recognition from the city council as well, because
Yes.
you're definitely the brains behind it.
Yes.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yes, I appreciate positive feedback, and I had presented two or three council
Yeah.
meetings before on the specific sustainability work plan as well. So it was good to see that they had taken some of the highlights of that.
Yeah, good job, Rose.
Thank you all. It's definitely a partnership, and it takes a village to do all the work that we do. So just want to say thank you again. I'll be following up, getting some of those dates on the calendar, and looking forward to see you at Trunk or Treat on October 30th. Yeah.
I'm an astronaut, so nobody wear. The astronaut twins. I've been my outfit for 10 years.
I gotta keep Bob Ross.
I'm an NASA astronaut though.
Okay.
I'm a Spanish astronaut now. Did you see that?
Yeah.
I heard about that.
Young one.
You wanna tell that? I'll be that.
And we
lady.
have we have to move these, huh?
Totally.
Oh,
Yeah.
So there's one thing from Sebastian I forgot to say. So when you have something you want to report, so you have to do it. So there's a thing called EAD maps from King County. And like if you're sitting there near the plant, I would take pictures of you and it drops the pin where my phone is.
Oh.
And then that will go up. Just don't do any class C. I can look at those, just class A, class B.
What are they
And
called?
then that way, it's EDD map.
Say that again.
King County, he does look at.
E,
In the follow-up, I'll send a link to their committee.
Like
EDD.
Edward Dog, MAP.
And then did I hear a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Yes, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay.
All in favor of adjourning our meeting early tonight, say aye. Those opposed? Okay,
All right,
We're
thank
adjourned.
you all.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you
November
all.
will be an off-site, so I'll be communicating with you all.